Streaming from Oklahoma's own digital studio, this is Thunder Talk with Dean Blevins and John Holcomb.
Hi, everyone. John and Dean here on the afternoon of Game 1 of the NBA Finals. The Thunder taking on the Indiana Pacers. Dean, I know there are a lot of matchups that we want to get into, but as we start this, overall, your thoughts about this series and about what you expect tonight?
Well, I've got to start even before that by saying I don't know about you this morning, but I have found my heart racing. Now, part of that's because I'm retiring in 25 days and 7 hours, but it is just racing. And it got me to thinking about other big games that likewise had me just so fired up that you just couldn't wait to get to the arena. And the ones that came to mind to me were Oklahoma's several national championship games in college football. The big one was the 1988 OU versus Kansas NCAA championship game. A couple of the Eddie Sutton Final Fours, those types of things. And as you know, getting inside the ropes with Tiger Woods, I kind of knew that was going to come. And so my heart was racing. So I don't know about you. Have you had similar feelings?
I have. I would compare it to the feeling I had before Game 1, the last time the Thunder made it in 2012, when it was so brand new, and the whole idea of having an NBA franchise in the state was so brand new. I think there was just too much of that. Now, you've been able to go through the ups and downs, and to find this team, which has been such a sweet surprise with the way the season has gone. It's like they're ahead of schedule, but it's not just that they've made the finals and the anticipation of hosting the biggest event in the sport, but it's also the fact that it's the way they play the game. And I know this, listen, you and I were never, even though we played on different levels, neither one of us was ever shy about shooting the ball because that was the fun part. You get to make shots.
Yeah.
But the way they play the game is so refreshing. It goes back to when you and I were both growing up and in our separate areas and how we were taught the game should be played. It's so much more like that now, and that's the refreshing part to me.
Yeah, I think people are going to be surprised. A lot of people are talking about the small market teams, and maybe it's not going to be so good. These are the two best teams, best offense, best defense. I think it's going to be a terrific series from that standpoint. But I also think the other component that has me internally fired up is that, and I know you agree with this, that these guys are solid citizens, if you will. They have got so much character on this team and this organization from the top to the bottom that it is more than easy to root for, quite frankly. You just hope for the best for them because you want them to set examples that maybe people moving forward will pick some of those up. As for on the court, I mean, the big matchup is I want to know what Haliburton's going to do. Obviously, Siakam is the other guy, but Haliburton, Oklahoma City's done a good job these two games this season and the two games last season. I think they averaged giving up 12 points to him, and he's been known for some off nights. It's going to be interesting to see what he does because, John, you know how he's coming into this series. They are being dissed, being second. It would be the second biggest upset in NBA history if they pulled it off. And, he was also voted by the players as most overrated. So, he will come in psyched up for this for whatever that's worth.
He and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are unique in that if you look at across the league, I cannot think of a really good comparable player to their particular styles. And maybe it's because of their build physically too. But Haliburton, he looks like the smaller version of how we used to talk about Kevin Durant, the slim reaper. He turns sideways, or Chet Holmgren, he turns sideways, you can't see him. But Haliburton plays this. It's a combination of a slashing sort of game while also being a distributor. And you don't find that many. Of course, he can shoot the ball outside, but so he's got that unique skill set. we know what SGA has in his big bag of tricks, which is an awful lot of stuff with height to go along with it. And as you mentioned off the air during our special last night, length. SGA has some length. So, I am interested in that. And what I don't know that we've seen, while the Thunder have done a really good job against Haliburton, now Haliburton and this whole Indiana team has a boatload of momentum.
Yeah.
But they still haven't faced any team that plays defense as well or as consistently or as ferociously as Oklahoma City. And the two times they lost to the Knicks in that Eastern Conference Finals, they didn't score 100 points, and that was against the Knicks. You got to wonder where the cutoff is. You know how we talk sometimes about first team to X amount of points is probably going to win the game? They're averaging 117 in the playoffs. Indiana is. So is OKC. What's the cutoff? If you hold them to 105, you would think you'd win every game.
Well, I think the coaching comes into that as well, and we know around here that we've seen Mark Daigneault grow, and he's grown with several of these team members. So we know what he does as a 40-year-old. But on that other sideline, I don't know if there's another coach I would prefer to not go against than Carlisle. He was part of the Celtics championship as a player or a watcher. And then he was with Larry Bird. They were in the 2000, Bird coaching Indiana, 2000 title runs. I mean, he's been around, but he can flat out coach. And you know that he will be scheming to take advantage of opportunities against this defense because there's got to be vulnerabilities. And I know one of them there will inevitably be wide open shooters because of some of the things that Oklahoma City does. And just because that's the way the game's played, Oklahoma City's been fortunate so far in that I don't know the percentage number, but I'm going to guess the combined opponents in the playoffs haven't shot better than somewhere in the 20 to 25% range, maybe, John. And you can't win doing that. But they've got capable shooters, and I think they're going to be wide open several times a game. And what they do will be pretty important.
Yeah, Aaron Nesmith is one of those guys, and they rely on him. He probably doesn't get enough credit for what Indiana's been able to do in the postseason. We talk so much about Haliburton and then Siakam, and then to a certain degree, Miles Turner's name comes up more than Nesmith. But all you have to do is go back and look. I think it was game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and Indiana is way down in the Garden to the Knicks, and Nesmith just starts going nuts, making threes.
Yes,
but it's not just that. It's his defensive prowess. I'll get to that in a second. I'll ask you this though, Dean. When you're talking about those open shots, you know the feeling that when a team is so good defensively and they're not giving you any room to breathe, that sometimes when you get those open shots, it's almost like this. I got to rush it a little bit because somebody's coming. So I think that's a kind of an added benefit to the way Oklahoma City plays defense, don't you think?
Hey, we've got so many analytics out there. I wonder what the numbers are on wide open 3-point shooters versus defended pretty well or really contested. And I know someone out there has that information, but I'd be curious to find it out. I have a feeling it's about the same. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I do think the pressure has its added benefits. It's almost like the ghost pressure, if you want to call it that when you're open, then you're like, oh, I can't believe I'm open. I'm finally open. I have to make this shot. We don't get enough open shots. But I'll go back to Nesmith for a moment since it's on my mind.
Yeah.
The other end of the floor for him. He's probably going to guard Shai a lot. If his ankle is where it needs to be, because he was not as good at the end of the Knicks series as he was at the beginning. And that ankle's been a bit of an issue. But what he does have, Dean, that Shai hasn't seen on a consistent basis in the playoffs, well, maybe at all in the playoffs. Nesmith isn't as tall as McDaniels from Minnesota, but he's physical. He's got those broad shoulders, and he may try to, they're going to let him play. I'll be shocked if this series gets called tightly. They're going to let him play on both ends.
And it's been more physical. And John, it's been more physical than I can remember. It's been more physical than the regular season, and the regular season was very physical. Not to interrupt you, but just to follow up on that point, Matt Pinto, the great play-by-play announcer for the Thunder radio, was talking about, he's seen 5,000 games, and he was talking about the physical play, and he expects it to continue because that's in Oklahoma City's favor, by the way. For the most part. I don't know about the SGA part. You bring up a great idea, so carry on.
Yeah, well, Nesmith, he's going to. You would have to assume if he uses his strengths. For example, McDaniels is taller, so he's going to feel like he can close the gap on a guy using a ball screen a little better. Nesmith's going to probably try to run right through even Hartenstein. So what does that look like, and how does Shai adjust to it? And, okay, if they do start calling fouls and Nesmith gets into foul trouble, then who's their next guy? Probably Andrew Nembhard. Another really good defender, but at that point, then that's where the size difference could really be in Oklahoma City's favor.
Yeah. It was Nembhard who did a good job on Brunson some. At times, and that was really important in that thing. When you look at Oklahoma City and you wonder offensively, how's it going to go? I think the Thunder need to be in attack mode, because when they struggled at the beginning of the playoffs and during the regular season, occasionally it was when they were tentative and the shot clock would get wound down. Shai was even tentative. And you had a third-year guy, you had J-Dub out there in his third year making All-Star, but still it was all new to him. And so he's come a long, long way. The question might be, are they going to be able to pick it up right where they were a week ago? Or is there regression there? Because J-Dub has to perform. He has to come through. I think it helps that Chet Holmgren is playing better and scoring more, but you don't want to rely on Chet to go out and score 25 points. You'd like to get you at least 20 from J-Dub. And he's going to have some defensive assignments for a good portion of the game against Siakam.
I thought your interview with Matt Pinto on the special was very insightful, and he made this point that the understated part of this series is, can Oklahoma City's offense make Indiana's defense work hard enough that, in my interpretation of what he was saying, takes the starch out of the up and down style that the Pacers want to play. So if you're doing that, then you've got to have a balance. You still got to be aggressive. I totally agree with you. But you don't necessarily, and this might be one of the first times, when you're at home, sure, get out and run and go score. But make them work when things are settled. And there are plenty of times in playoff games when the pace grinds down a little bit. And can you execute and maintain that aggressiveness? I totally agree with you on that. Got a couple more minutes here. So in terms of how you expect, and I'll turn this light back on, it's a function of where I am. The light's back on, so that means my brain's working again. What do you expect?
I thought the bar you were in right now didn't open until. I'm glad that the lights are on now. I didn't know that it opened this early.
Yeah, well, I don't go into any bars ever. So now I'll get my train of thought back. What do you expect from Game 1? What do you think's going to happen tonight?
Well, I think that I think it's going to be a tight fit. I think that Indiana is going to surprise some people that just think they have no chance in this thing. I think Oklahoma City will win game 2 just by the way things work in playoffs in history. But I think this game is really important. They've been a really good game 1 team. Oklahoma City's done pretty well in game 1s, but this bunch they're playing has been really good in game 1, and they could look to steal one. The one thing I would say is if they do steal one, and Oklahoma City wins game 2, I don't think you can look at it and say they're done. They lost that first game. I think this could be one where you could win and lose at home or on the road. I think the crowd will be a big factor in that. And if Oklahoma City can get some offensive momentum going, the defense is going to be there. So I think a lot of it has to do offensively with what the Thunder does.
I agree with you, and I do think tonight will be tight just because both teams are going to have some nerves. It may not look pretty for stretches of the first quarter or maybe the second quarter, but whoever finds their footing first, I think will have a really good chance at coming out on top. I just would say this, and we said it on the special last night. If you're up by 7 and you're the Thunder with less than a minute to go, you better hang on to that lead because Indiana is outstanding at pulling games out of the fire. They've proved it time and time again in the playoffs. All right, so that'll do it for this particular Thunder Talk. Dean and I will be back before Game 2. You'll be able to catch us on that. We'll give our thoughts on how Game 1 went and preview you for Game 2, which is Sunday night at 7 o'clock in Paycom Center. We'll be doing this throughout the series. So for my good friend Dean Blevins, I'm John Holcomb. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching this Oklahoma Zone digital studio stream. Stay with News on 6 online and on television anytime for the latest news, weather, and sports.